with each other. And we thought that
all right, welcome everyone. We know many people flew in, so it's like a really big deal for us that you're here. This is a big day for us. We started working on this about 5 years ago, and back then we really believed that something like this should exist in an AI future that we all want to live in. And so not only do we think what we do is critical, we also think it's very, very timely. And that is why one of the main themes of today is about scale and how we can get all the products and services that we build to many, many more people in the next years. But before we talk about the actual products, we wanted to talk a little bit about why we are even here, why we started this, and what is top of mind for us. And with that, Sam, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Great. Nice to see all of you. So we started this a long time ago with a belief that at the time seemed very unusual, which was that AI progress was about to go very rapid. And we thought that if AI happened, if AI fulfilled the dream, when we still have a long way to go, but we've made a lot of progress since, then it was going to be the most powerful tool that humans had yet created. It would change the economy, it would change society in all sorts of ways. And the thing that we hoped for the most with AI, and the things we wanted to build around AI, is that AI would really accelerate people. This idea that AI was a tool that people would use, not an entity on its own, and that people were going to be able to do things in the world that they just couldn't have done before. And we started thinking about the infrastructure that society was going to need if AI really started to happen. You know, what does it take to get to this great outcome for the world? We could imagine a world back then, and even more now, with lots of AI tools that let people do far more than they ever could before, lots of AI agents off doing things, and one thing we thought for sure is that the world was going to need a new layer of infrastructure for this to be able to happen. That you wanted the ability to verify humanity. You wanted to know who the people were. You wanted to be able to provide great infrastructure for humans and agents to be sending resources back and forth and doing all sorts of things and communicating with each other. And we thought that maybe if there were a way to build a new network, that it would be a powerful step forward towards doing this.
And so with that, we came up with a simple plan. And that plan didn't change much since then, and I don't think it will change much going forward. And it had 4 big steps. That's it. The first one was about building a proof of human system that can be deployed globally. It is fully anonymous. Then second, use that infrastructure to launch a digital token by giving ownership in it to eventually every human, and use that to get the network to critical scale. Then third, continuously scale and decentralize the network to then eventually, among many other great things that we hope this network will do, use it to make the benefits of AI accessible to everyone. And so we did one. We developed World ID, which we think is that proof of human on internet scale. We launched the token last July, which brought us to step number 2. And so currently we are at 3. And that means that a big, big focus of what we do is the continuous scale and decentralization of the network. And Sam, one of the big things you brought to the company very early on was this conviction about scale. And to me and a couple other team members, back then this felt very scary because it's like very counter to usual startup advice. That's not what you usually do. But you had a lot of conviction about that, and I gained it over time. But you want to talk about why that is?
Not always, but surprisingly often, I have found that scale is this very important emergent property across all sorts of things. You want to scale neural networks, you want to scale like companies, you want to scale crypto networks, you want to scale all sorts of things. And human intuition, for whatever reason, seems to consistently undervalue the emergent properties of scale across all of these things. So one joke that I use sometimes is, when in doubt, scale it up. It doesn't work for everything, but I think it's an interesting default. And one of the things that we've talked about with WorldCoin is we want to see what happens when we do this at mass scale. If we're going to build infrastructure for all people, it's great that we've signed up so many, but there's like 99.9% left to go. Alex will talk about progress there, but scale has a really important quality across all of these things, and it has been a principle that we've been driving towards.
All right. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
So, well, how are we doing on that? Currently, every 2 seconds, someone new is joining the network. We are at 15 million total users, 7 million of which verified with an orb. And one other thing that we really care about is the density of the network, because we think that makes it useful for developers and us to build products that are actually critical and useful to people. We are now at 1 out of 7 in Santiago and Lisbon, just 2 examples, and even 1 out of 3 of adults in Buenos Aires, Argentina that are verified. And so while this is exciting and kind of something to be proud of from where we came from, this is of course just the bare beginning, just like truly the super early beginnings of what we're trying to do, because the mission here is to truly bring the service to every human. And the first step of the plan talked about proof of human. And 5 years ago, this sounded like this abstract thing, because Alan Turing, as many of you know here, in the 50s proposed a very important test, the Turing test. And for many decades, this was seen as this like massive major milestone that maybe eventually AI will pass. I remember when I was a student, my professors were talking about this and like how this is like decades out. But in the last 12 months, we actually passed the Turing test. And this is a really big deal. Not only did we do that, we are also now entering a time in which we are about to have almost real-time generated video content. We will have photos and these kinds of things. And actually, for most of the situations, this is going to be super exciting because it will make content better suited to what we like. It will be super entertaining, but it will also require us to rethink how we as a society operate. We need to rethink how we do elections, how we run our democracies, and even how we use the services that we love, like our social networks. And so with that, we think we need a new test, and that is a proof of human. And we think we need it now. But thinking about this now for a couple of years, it is unfortunately much harder than it initially seems. Many of the immediate ideas you might have to solve that problem actually don't work. They just break for one reason or the other. You could think about using phone cameras, you could think about potentially using government IDs, maybe using Face ID. None of those actually work. And given we really care about this problem and we think it's critical to achieve our ultimate mission, we took it very serious. And we came to this like super, super painful realization very early in the project that we will likely have to distribute physical hardware around the world. And not only that, we have to open it up so many other companies, many other parties can join us in building these devices, and probably in like many different shapes, probably integrated in the hardware devices that already exist or we already use. But this is very likely what will need to happen, because the current infrastructure, the current systems that are out there just don't work for that particular problem. And that's why we built the Orb, which is an inclusive and secure, as well as an anonymous way to solve that proof of human problem at global scale. And today, we will talk about the next generation of the Orb, something we worked on really hard for quite a while, and I'm really excited about. And so with that, we're going to hear first from Thomas, the designer behind the actual Orb, and then from Rich, who actually is manufacturing and building and engineering these devices.
Today, I'm incredibly excited to announce our new Orb and the spaces it will live in. The Orb is a very important part of our experience that we deliver to our users. It's where the user first meets us. So it's a very special moment, a moment where you prove that you are you, that you are human. The spaces we introduce today are the places where this Orb will live. It's a bit of a temple, a place to visit to get verified, but it's also designed with the values of a public space. It's inviting, simple, peaceful. It's focusing on the user, on the Orb, and the verification.
So here it is. Here's the new orb. So besides being just incredibly beautiful, it was designed from the ground up with scale in mind. The entire software stack was completely rewritten for all orbs to enable verifications 3 times faster than before. The new orb was designed with 30% fewer parts, and it enables us to assemble them at twice the speed. Initially, we're tripling the production capacity of the orb, with plans to increase that even further with new assembly partners and locations around the world. We're making progress towards the ultimate goal of decentralized orb manufacturing. The latest orb is built with the NVIDIA Jetson architecture, which has 5 times the AI performance over the previous generation. It's capable of 100 trillion operations per second. So this enables the new orb to execute sophisticated AI models that prove humanness and operate entirely on device, and even faster than before. The new orb was built with more transparency and the ability to audit the code that's running on it. It has a fully removable SD card that contains all the operating instructions. So anyone can compare those instructions on the SD card versus our published source code. But to provide access to every human, we need more orbs. Lots more orbs, probably on the order of 1,000 times more orbs than we have today. Not only more orbs, but more orbs in more places. And I want to talk about a few ways we're going to achieve that today. Firstly, we'll continue to expand our operations into even more countries than we're in today. I'm excited to share the flagship locations with you today also. These are premium verification experiences. We have staff there available to answer any questions people have. We've opened our first 2 flagship locations in Buenos Aires and Mexico City just a couple weeks ago. This is our Mexico City location that opened just a few weeks back. I think they really look amazing. Next, we're expanding access to orbs through self-serve verifications. Think of these as orbs inside existing retail locations, so your neighborhood convenience store or local coffee shop like you see behind me. These enable people to both discover the project through seeing an orb in a retail environment or specifically going to that retail store with the intent to verify with an orb. These partnerships are key to scaling the orb locations and getting more distributed in a region. They're providing access to even more people than we do today. And if you don't want to go find an orb, that's okay. So starting today, we're announcing a new feature called Orb on Demand. This will enable anyone with the touch of a button to request an orb come to them. Much like a pizza you would have delivered to your apartment, you can push a button, it shows up at your door, and that driver then leaves the food behind. And I'm incredibly excited to announce a brand new partnership with Rappi, the #1 delivery service in Latin America. They're integrating with our app, and they'll dispatch their existing delivery fleet to bring orbs to anyone who wants to verify whenever they want to. And lastly, I want to talk about a new type of operator we're starting today, called community operators. So anyone can rent or buy the new orb to verify anyone in their community. We'll have a website up, you can place your pre-order, and starting in the spring of 2025, it'll be delivered to you. In fact, I want all of you guys here today to be our first community operators. Everyone here will get an orb. So we made these amazing metal cards that we're going to distribute afterwards. And of course, we're going to use World ID to equitably distribute these cards to everyone. We want to make sure everyone gets their orb and no one's able to redeem 2 of them. So all you'll need is a World ID. We'll have a station in the back. And if you don't have one yet, that's okay. There are lots of orbs available after the presentation. So go get your World ID and be our first community operators. So with that, I'll turn it over to Alex.
All right, thank you, Rich. One thing I'm really excited about is something we talked about for a long time, which is opening up the operations to truly everyone. And I think that will change how the network functions and will drastically scale it up. And of course, you're going to be the first of these community operators. So this is exciting too. So let's talk about World ID. We talked about proof of human. We talked about the importance of it. But how you actually use it and how other services integrate it is World ID. And World ID will be the anonymous human layer for the internet. But there's a lot of details that go into making that actually work. And so today, we will release the next version of World ID 3.0. And I will give it over to Adrian to talk about what that includes. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate that you acknowledge there's some details that we need to work through. Alex is prone to saying it's a simple plan. We'll just make an anonymous layer for the internet, and it'll work. It's not quite that simple. We also throw around the word protocol quite a lot. And within the organization, the reason that we do that is because it's a commitment. It's a commitment to making sure that we're building something that benefits all of humanity. It's something that's open, permissionless, decentralized, accessible to any developer, any operator, any manufacturer to enhance their current business or to build potentially new businesses. And that's not one company. That's a foundation for lots of people to interact with the web. It truly is that anonymous layer, the anonymous human layer for the internet. But even that is a pretty big, pretty detailed statement to make. And if I had said a year ago to a crowd of people, all of you very security-minded, very concerned about privacy, you would have said, it's just not possible. And I think you probably would have been right at the time. It wasn't possible. How we would build something that would scale to 7 million users, much less the billion that we're targeting over the next several years, is just not possible a year ago. And yet when we went and talked to the team of cryptographers at WorldCoin Foundation, they said, that's interesting. It might be possible. And they began to think about it. Remco, Philip, how do we use existing technologies that don't quite scale, that don't quite operate at the level that we want them to work, and build something that becomes part of the protocol? And they started experimenting with something called secure multi-party compute. Earlier this year, we talked about the fact that we were beginning to see the path towards using secure multi-party compute to build something that would allow data to be decentralized across several different parties, so there wouldn't be one single entity or even 2 entities or any individual entity that could see that data. It wouldn't be held by the WorldCoin Foundation. It wouldn't be held by any one company. And as we began going through that experimentation, we began to publish research and began to understand what was possible, we developed something that we're now calling the anonymized multi-party computation. The key attribute that it provides is the ability to take a piece of data, know whether it is unique, but know nothing else about that piece of data on an individual basis. Multi-party is a really important part of this because the data is broken into pieces that can't be brought back together and shared with different parties, and then through a lot of math that Remco will talk about a little bit later today, gives us that key attribute of it being anonymous. Multi-party is a critical part of multi-party computation, as you might expect, right? And it's important that none of the parties that are going to be holding the data that's necessary for the system to work are going to be centralized. Over the last year, we've worked to find parties that we think provide certain key attributes. They have to be trustworthy. They have to be globally distributed. They have to be independent from one another. At this time, we're announcing 3 partners who are already beginning the process of standing up infrastructure and onboarding the data that's necessary. Those are Berkeley's Center for Responsible Decentralized Intelligence, based here in California. I'm actually a Cal alum myself. FAU, based in Germany, and Nethermind, a global blockchain and crypto security company that has incredible amount of respect in that community. In addition to that, we're working with the University of Zurich to finalize terms to begin onboarding them as well. By November of this year, we expect that all of the data that is behind World ID will be held by those parties, broken into pieces in such a way that no one of them is able to tell anything about that data other than answering the question, is this unique? The core to our uniqueness service. Now, I build infrastructure for a living, I do security for a living, I do privacy for a living. I could spend, in fact, I'm obligated to spend all day, every day, thinking about those problems. But what's more exciting than thinking about those is thinking about how you can begin using that uniqueness attribute, anonymized and at internet scale, to enable new use cases. How many of you have a driver's license in your pocket? How many of you borrowed a passport off of one of your friends earlier today? Thank you, Ajay. I promise I'll give it back. I can't actually use anything about it. We'll go into the details of that in just a minute. One of the important attributes to understanding whether or not a government credential is real is whether it's the one instance of that government credential. Uniqueness at scale is one of the challenges in being able to use credentials issued by government authorities in any meaningful way on the internet. There are other challenges as well. That driver's license, how many of you have tried to buy beer with your driver's license recently? I know you don't all look as young as I look. Did the person that was selling you the beer say, 155 pounds? Yeah, maybe you don't need this beer. Did they say, oh, I know somebody that lives on your block? Because you've got your address on your driver's license. Currently, the way that we use credentials on the internet is we disclose all of the information that those credentials use in order to answer one simple question. Are you over 18 and should you have access to this content? Or if you're trying to participate in some process provided by your government, are you a citizen of your government? You don't need to answer anything more than that. In fact, there are reasons why anonymity is critical for those kinds of interactions and so important. So uniqueness gives us the ability to determine that the document is real. Anonymity gives you the willingness to actually use the information contained in that document. So today, we're beginning a beta of World ID credentials. And there's 2 characteristics that I think are critically important here that I want to point out. This is only possible because of the scale and anonymity that AMPC provides. So we think we're unique in the ability to make this possible, but of course it's going into the protocol, so anybody can take advantage of it, anybody can use it, and we would encourage anybody and everybody to do that. The second attribute, because we are so committed to privacy, that passport information is only ever going to be on your phone. We're not copying it up into the cloud, we're not making an instance of it and putting it into the back end. You will hold the information about your passport on your device, and AMPC will be used to do uniqueness check. An incredible way to provide private access and the ability to interact in an anonymous way while providing the ability to verify certain attributes that are critical to access online services, truly adding to that experience. We're rolling out in a number of countries. Today, United States passports work. Today, passports from a number of other countries are also in development, and we're rolling them out over the next couple of weeks. Now, this isn't just about being able to tell more about yourself and interactions online. It's also about providing access to the network to people who otherwise can't get to it. Now, Rich's team has built a lot of orbs. I'm not going to give away any secret numbers. But it's also the case that there just aren't enough of them out there right now. And there aren't enough users able to get to them as quickly as we would like. And so we think the ability to onboard to the network by using a unique ID and a unique document will allow us to accelerate the growth of the number of people that are on the network. So that's a critical capability as well. Of course, they won't have used an orb, so we won't really know they're human. We just know they're they're a thing that has a passport. Oh, and I forgot to mention, we also check to make sure that the image that's on that passport matches the image of the person that's using their phone. That'll become more important in just a moment. Because I shouldn't be able to enroll with Ajay's passport, right? Uniqueness at a global scale, having anonymity at a global scale is critically important. In addition to beginning to think through how to use existing government credentials, we're also beginning the process of understanding how it is that this World ID can be incorporated into the digital identity infrastructure that's being built in other countries. There are 2 countries right now where we're the furthest along in those conversations, where we have MOUs and partnerships that have been established, and we're talking with legislators, policymakers, and think tanks in those countries to identify how it is that World ID can be connected to their digital infrastructure and allow the citizens in those countries to have basically better services. I want to thank, we have a member, we care a lot about anonymity and privacy, so I'm not going to point them out, but we do have a member here of the legislature from Taiwan. And I want to thank them for coming here. We're really excited about the opportunity that we've had to work with you so far, and I think it's going to be incredible what it is that we're able to do together. I don't know about you, but at least for the last 4 or 5 years, I've spent far too much time in video conferencing. Is that true for anybody else? Maybe a few of you. Is there anybody that's currently video conferencing that's here? I'm a security person. The news that I read is different from everybody else's. That's kind of the way of silos these days. One of the things that I've heard about 4 or 5 times over the last year is an instance of a member of a company working in the finance department receiving an urgent call or an urgent text. It says, get on Zoom. This is your CEO. Doesn't seem scammy because I'm going to get on a Zoom with them and I'm going to interact with them and I'm going to learn what it is that's being asked for. And that member of the finance department then having an interaction where they're told we need to transfer money, and it's their CEO. They're talking to their CEO. It's their CFO. They're talking to them. It's their voice. It's their face. It's a real interaction. Now, it probably hasn't happened to any of you. If it has, I want to know more details about it. But it's something that we're concerned about. It's certainly something that we're beginning to think about, and it has started to happen in the real world. World ID is in a unique position for a few reasons. The first is that it's the only system right now that at a global scale is endeavoring to have a trusted interaction where an image of a person is being captured, signed, and then being made available in an anonymous, trustworthy way. That's actually a very, very unique technical attribute of the system. The other thing that we announced earlier this year, originally part of World ID 2.0, currently available, was Face-Off, where we use the image that's contained in that personal custody package captured by the orb and made available and held on the user's device to do a comparison to make sure that the person who's interacting with the device is actually the same as the person who originally signed up. That authentication is really critical for being able to decide where they can interact on the internet. And so, as we were looking at this challenge of deepfakes, we began thinking, is this something that we can help solve? And it turns out we can. We can connect those two things together, combined with a challenge being issued by the person who wants to make sure that the person they're interacting with in a given transaction is actually the same face as what it is that they're seeing online, or what it is that's been presented to them in the past. And so we call that World ID Deepface. We're announcing it today. We're working on a beta of it right now, that's just going to be coming out very shortly. The implementation is, of course, as an SDK. We want to make it possible for anyone to incorporate it directly into their application, make it as seamless as possible, tie into your infrastructure within your enterprise, make it part of your Active Directory or whatever LDAP system it is that you're using to sort of bring it together and make it as seamless as possible. But in addition to that, we want to make it available so people can begin playing with it and understanding how it works right now. So we're announcing a beta, and the beta is an integration with existing applications, right? You and the devices that you're using right now will be able to work with this beta. We'll be able to confirm that the person you're interacting with is the one that you think you're interacting with in an online conversation. And it will work with all of the applications that currently use video. So it's not dedicated to any one of them. Very excited to make that announcement as well. And with that, I'll hand it off to Alex. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Adrian. A lot of new things about AD 3.0. I'm actually particularly excited about AMPC because this was such a big push for the last couple months, and it was really not obvious that we're going to make it work. And the fact that not even Tools for Humanity WorldCoin Foundation is part of their computation, I think is a really big deal. But let's talk more about blockchains. So Adrian mentioned that what we are building is an actual protocol, not a company. And that is confusing in a lot of different ways on how you run a company and kind of how we can contribute. But what it also means is that the underlying infrastructure needs to be decentralized. And that is what blockchains allow us to do. But over the last year, as we continued scaling, we hit the limits of what Ethereum L2s were able to do. And that was really unfortunate. It became very expensive to operate a network. And that's why we announced WorldChain. Because we have a proof of human, we can do things that other blockchains are not able to do. We can give free transactions to real humans, and therefore we can make it much more scalable. And of course, we also have our own infrastructure that we can adapt to our own needs. WorldChain is launching today. And with that, I will give it to W from the WorldCoin Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Hello, everybody. WorldCoin Foundation is super impressed Tools for Humanity has been doing with everything, with all the work Tools for Humanity has been doing to grow the project. That work means that today, WorldChain is launching with 15 million human users, one of the biggest blockchains in the world on day one. Everything users and developers need, on-ramps, off-ramps, all the mission-critical integrations are all already there. And it's obviously only going to grow from here. All of this is secured by Ethereum, which we also think is the best possible way and the big deal. And to get ready for the first billion users, 50 million WLD has been committed to WorldCoin Foundation grants program. This is really big opportunity for developers to build with us. We have whole deep dive on WorldChain and what we can build together on the stage with Liam Horn at 12:30. Join us. And now Alex will show you how we can actually use the network. Thank you so much.
All right, so we talked about infrastructure, protocol, and many somewhat complicated sounded things, but we didn't talk a lot about how to actually use it. And I'm actually convinced that over the coming years, many of the apps and services that you use will start using the underlying WorldCoin infrastructure in one way or the other. And you won't even notice it, you won't even know about it. And so very much like the internet, there's going to be many different browsers and they will do all kinds of different things. But that's why we make it even much easier to integrate with WorldCoin. Like it's already possible today, but somewhat painful, takes a lot of time, and we heard that from many apps. And so that's why in Q1, we're releasing WalletKit as an SDK to make that much easier. We're already working closely with important and big partners to make that happen. But of course, in the beginning, last year, we had to build our own client because, of course, there was not anyone else. And that's why we started working on World App. And already today, World App is actually the third largest crypto wallet in the world. But that's, again, just the bare beginning. We are aiming for billions of users. And today, we're talking about World App 3.0, which hopefully will make it much more exciting and useful to you. Thank you.
We've been blown away by the response to World App since we launched it last year. And today, we're going to take it to the next level with World App 3.0. World App 3.0 has been redesigned from the ground up with one goal in mind: to make the WorldCoin network even more useful for your day-to-day life. It starts with World ID, your internet human identity. You can see whether you're verified, and if you're not, you can use the app to find an orb near you to be able to get verified. Now, of course, beyond orb verifications, World App now also supports the new World ID credentials, which means that you can now add things like your passport or your driver's license to your World ID to be able to prove things about yourself in the internet without compromising your anonymity. And lastly, World App will, of course, later this fall, allow you to prove not only that you're a real and unique person, but that you are who you say you are, powered by World ID Deepface. Something else we wanted to do with this version of World App was to make it easier to interact with other people in the network. And so we're adding a tab where you can look up anyone by their username, or if you want to, connect your phone contacts so it's even easier to find your friends and do things like send them a transfer. Lastly, World App has a wallet built right into it. It allows you to use things like WorldCoin, digital dollars, and other crypto assets, and people love it. In fact, since we launched it last year, people have already performed more than 150 billion verifications that count for more than $1.5 billion in volume, not even including people claiming WorldCoin. And today, that's going to get even better, because the new version of the wallet is built on WorldChain and is able to process transactions up to 90% faster than before. That means that you will, for the first time, be able to use World App not only to send money to your friends across the world in an instant without any fees, but also be able to pay at merchants by scanning a QR code, or even in online shops, like powered by Shopify, using your WorldCoin and your wallet balance. Now, my personal favorite new feature of the wallet is the Vault. The Vault allows you to lock away some funds for the future and earn a little bit along the way. I've been testing it for the past few months, and honestly, it's just super fun sometimes to just open the app and see your balance tick up every second without having to do any work. This is truly what the future should look like. Now, as we built all of these new products and services into World App, it was important to us not only that they were simple and useful, but also that they didn't compromise on the things that matter for the network. This means being able to use World App fully anonymously, making sure that your important data and wallet keys are only stored on your device, so you have full control over how to use it and who to share it with. And of course, making sure that it's inclusive. Because if you want to build a network that can reach everyone, you need to have an app that works for everyone. This includes things like making sure that it's localized to dozens of languages and supports more than 50 currencies. And yes, even supporting as many phones as possible, some of them up to 10 years old. We're very proud of all of these new features that we're building to World App with the wallet, the ID, and the contacts. And honestly, if we had left it there, this would have already been by far the biggest release of the app. But of course, we didn't stop there. So today, I'm very excited to share with you that we're going to introduce mini apps to World App. Mini apps are third-party applications that you can explore and use right from inside of the app, and they can integrate deeply with your World ID, with your wallet, and with your contacts to provide you a new type of products and services that were not possible before. So let's look at what they look like. Starting today, when you open World App, you'll be greeted by a new Apps tab. You can see the apps that you have installed, and they're ready to be used just one tap away. When you want a new app, you can simply go to the App Store. You can explore things like categories, search, or even the touch chart. And when you see something that you're interested in, you can tap it to look into the details, knowing that you can cross things like how many people are using it, or that the
Police
ratings
were
are real,
notified
because
and
all of this is
collected the
powered by
body to the
World ID.
city mortuary
So
as
let's
they
look at a few
informed the
examples
next
so you
of
can get a better
kin.
sense of the type of
tulimpata
things
alikuwa
you can do
amefesi the
with
other
mini
side,
apps.
so askari walimgeuza this
First
side.
one is
So
a pulse
hapa
app.
kwa
It's
shingo
super simple.
alikuwa na
It allows you to create a poll, share it on your
hatujui
social
kama ni
media, and for the first time ever, know that the results are actually
Nyonga ama
real and they
walimchapa na
aren't being skewed
object
by
ama
bots that are
walifanya
trying
nini.
to go
The
one way or
victim's
another.
husband, who was not at home,
Now,
says
it doesn't all
Naomi
have to be
received a
serious.
phone
It
call
turns out
from
that
someone
games
and she left the house, leaving
are also way
9-year-old
better
daughter at
when they're built on
home.
top of
When
a
the
human
husband
network.
arrived from work,
It's just
he could
much
not
more
find
fun to play
Naomi.
against real humans
Mimi nikarudi kwa nyumba
rather than bots
kujiekelea.
that are cheating.
So kujiekelea kidogo
My
kufika saa
personal
9
favorite
naona
is Flappy
nashtuka,
Orb,
kitu nanishtua kwa
and
ndoto
you should
ni
check
kama
it
hizo ndo
out.
masaa
And it is,
mke
of
wangu alikuwa
course,
anakata roho
just
ama
as
nini.
hard as the classic
sura
thing that this is
ilinikujia
inspired
kabisa,
by.
mimi naona watu wanang'ang'ana na hao watu ni kama
Now,
tawana nguo,
just
imagine
as mini
hiyo
apps can
time.
integrate deeply with World ID
Kashtuka hata
to be able to
nikasweat
provide unique
kuamka kuangalia
services,
kwa
they
kitanda
can
sioni
also
mtu na
integrate
naona
deeply with
mtoto
your
peke yake
contacts in
amelala.
your
A neighbor
wallet.
came knocking later
An
with the
example of that
bad
is
news.
WhatsApp.
His wife had
WhatsApp
been
is
murdered.
a messaging
Wakaniambia
application. It's
tumepata
encrypted.
bibi yako
It's built on
amewawa
top of the world
na
network.
mwili
That means you
umechukuliwa
can
na
text
askari.
anyone by their username or your
Hata sikuongea
contacts.
mengi.
You can, of
Niliingia
course,
kwa
do
nyumba
things like attach a
nikabadilisha
picture
nikavaa
or a
jumper
voice memo on the spot.
kaenda station
But because
kuconfirm
it's
your
connected to
message.
your wallet, you can
Investigators
also
later
just attach
arrested a
money right then
female
and there.
friend who was in
You can send
contact with
money
the deceased.
right on the spot
Before her
across the
killing,
world without
police
any
say the
fees,
suspect
without
was seen with the
anything.
deceased alongside two male
And of
adults
course,
moments before
because
the
World Chat is
murder.
running inside of World App,
An
we
autopsy
also
has
know whether the
confirmed
person
that
you're
Naomi
texting with is
died as a
verified human.
result of strangulation
So if they are,
and that her
you'll see them
killer
coming up with
sexually
a blue bubble.
assaulted her.
And if they're not,
Franklin
there will be a gray
Wala,
bubble.
Citizen
And
TV.
so, which is super useful to just know when you need to be more careful in different
48
conversations.
Kenyans who were rescued in Myanmar
Now, these are
have
just a few
arrived in the
examples
country,
of the
leaving
endless
77
number of things
more
you can deal
waiting
with this in your
repatriation.
primitive. And we can't wait
The
to see what
48 who
developers
landed at the Jomo
build
Kenyatta
with this.
International
If you're curious about
Airport
how
at
to build a
6
mini
a.m.
app,
this
there
morning
will be a full
aboard a
session
Kenya
dedicated to
Airways
that later
flight
today.
were taken by government multi-agency
Now,
team
the last
for
thing I want to say
a
about mini
debrief.
apps
Debrief, I
is
beg your
while
pardon.
they're of
And as
course
Emily
a way
Chebet
for you to be able
reports,
to do
36
things
more
today,
Kenyans are
we
expected
also
to
see
be
them as a
repatriated
foundation
soon.
for you to be
And
able
this
to
is after
delegate
their
some of
list
these
was
tasks to your
verified
AI
by
agents in the
Kenya's embassy
near
in
future.
Thailand
We'll
as
have more to
having
share on this next
successfully
year.
undergone
So that's
biometric
World App
processing.
3.0. It's a super app for humans.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs received the 48 Kenyans rescued from Myanmar, the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport at 6 a.m. on Saturday. The Kenyan ambassador to Thailand, Lindsay Kiptines, said embassy officials in Thailand received the rescued Kenyans at the Friendship Bridge 2 on the Thailand-Myanmar border on Friday morning before taking them to Thailand's
World App
Bangkok
3.0.
airport.
Really
Our efforts
exciting
to
mini
speak to the
apps.
returnees in Nairobi were futile.
Really excited to see
A
what you're gonna build
multi-agency
with that.
team
But
informed Citizen TV that they were going
to quickly summarize, as I mentioned right in the beginning, today's through line was all about scale. And we talked about a new orb, we talked about World ID 3.0, we talked about World Chain, and World App 3.0. But another question is, what can this be? Where is it going? What is next? So, just from my perspective, I've never felt more urgency ever in my life. I think what we do is very, very timely. And so we as a company really run as fast as we can. And I hope we can get these things as fast as we can to as many people as possible. But Sam, you have seen things like that play out much more often. What do you think?
Look, it's always hard to internalize exponential curves. The joke, but I think the thing that is true is they look like horizontal looking backwards and vertical looking forwards. I think the world is in one of these moments as we live through this platform shift and this technological revolution that I think is as big as any we've ever seen before. I'm very excited, super proud of the work the team has done to get to this point, but very excited for what this can be going forward. I think it can be one of these important new pieces of technological infrastructure for the world.
All right, and then lastly, we talked about identity, we talked about finance, somewhat loosely about community, but one of the things we've been thinking about actually for quite a while, and we know it sounds crazy, but it is that WorldCoin as a name just doesn't work anymore. And so, starting today, what has been called WorldCoin will be just called World. And so that is it with the main talk for today. However, there's side talks happening, I think at 11:45. And then we also have a Q&A with me and Sam to answer many of the questions you might have later on. So thank you all for coming. It's a big honor to have you here. And we hope to have many exciting updates to share next year. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. Thanks everyone for coming. My name is Liam. I am an advisor to the WorldCoin Foundation, and I've been a supporter of the project since the very beginning. I've been working on Ethereum scalability for nearly a decade at this point, and I've been really privileged to have been a part of some of the biggest blockchain launches in our industry, including OP Mainnet and Base. and I'm a really big believer of Ethereum and the power that it has to do good in the world. So I'm very honored to have the opportunity to share with you WorldChain today. So what is WorldChain? Well, you can basically boil it down to three very simple properties. One is it's going to be a blockchain designed for humans. Two is it's going to be an Ethereum L2. And three is it's the new economic home for world. And I'm going to go through in this presentation exactly what I mean by all these things. So when we designed WorldChain, because it had to be something unique and different from all other blockchains that the world network could be built upon, we had to come up with two very new principles for this ecosystem. The first is prioritizing humans over bots, and the second is focusing on real-world adoption. And the reason why is World is one of the only projects in the world that can actually pinpoint who is a human on a blockchain, and two is it has an enormous penetration in the markets where real-world crypto adoption is the largest. So
the Horn Institute, but as is the custom before the Supreme Court judges of bias and irresponsibility in handling key cases. In a letter addressed to the Chief Justice, Martha Koome, Tuju cited the conduct of the judges in handling cases involving Dari Limited. Tuju questioned the impartiality of...
There's an extremely precise mechanism that we've built that never existed before.
This is Citizen Weekend with Olive Barrows.
A very good evening to you. Welcome to Citizen Weekend. Tonight we look at the security situation in the region. I'll be joined by Dr. Fatma Ahmed Ali, who is an Associate Professor of International Relations, and Dr. Hassan Kanenje, who is the Director of the Horn Institute. But as is the custom, before we get into matters, South Sudan, Rwanda, Sudan, Somalia, DRC, let's take a look at the highlights.
These Supreme Court judges have gone to High Court judges. These are people they supervise. These are people they transfer.
You are fostering impunity. Former Cabinet Secretary Raphael Tuju writes to Chief Justice.
Building process. And because this can be kind of complicated, I'm going to explain it really clearly, visually. So this is Block Building 101. On a typical blockchain today, and this is on OP mainnet where the project has been up until today, you can kind of think of block building like this. You have a series of transactions coming in from around the world to a sequencer, and periodically they're going to draw a box around some bundle of those transactions and call that a block. The problem from the point of view of WorldCoin is that you don't know which of these transactions are from humans, which of these are from bots, and ultimately this is just a first-in priority order. Whoever pays the most money ends up at the top of the block. That's why bots and trading firms are able to pay their way to get in front of humans and capitalize on the access to order flow that they can get. So when we were thinking about how block building should work on WorldChain, we had the ability to, for the first time, change that structure because as an Ethereum L2 rollup, WorldChain is able to give the foundation in the future, the broader network, the ability to design the block building process. So what can we do with World? Since we have World ID, what we can do is we can label which transactions coming into a block are from real humans and not just arbitrary bots. And in addition, because we have the ability to order these blocks, we can do a very simple trick, which is we can put the ones that are from the humans at the top. It sounds very simple, but it's actually incredibly profound when you think of the implications on markets, MEV, and exchanges that are going to be built on WorldChain. Regardless of how much fees are paid by bots, humans will be given priority on WorldChain. And this is actually a very significant feature, both because it means humans will not be able to be front-run by arbitrageurs, MEV bots. It also means that we're going to have the ability to introduce separate gas markets for the prioritized human block space and the non-human block space. It's a very powerful feature, even though it seems very simple. And we've actually been very privileged to work with some of the best teams in the world on this. Reth, which is the leading execution client chains users. And if you have not been looking at the data, it's actually insane users. And if you have not been looking at the data, it's actually insane. It's literally tens of millions of dollars have been spent to give the illusion to users that their transactions are free on Polygon and OP mainnet over time, and that's just simply not sustainable. So how do we get to a world where we can ultimately make these transactions free? Well, this is the second really interesting feature that we can introduce on this blockchain because it's built by the World Foundation and is managed by the World Network. This set of fees is no longer just going to Polygon or Optimism or any other block builder. Actually, the vast majority of it will go directly to the network, which means this is the first time in history for the World project that there's going to be a net new value capture mechanism at all. So this is actually on its own a big deal, but it kind of begs the question, where do those fees go? Who's making that money? Does it go to the token holders or something? That's not the objective. So what we're going to be introducing into WorldChain is a gas allowance for humans, which is a very fun idea, and it's basically like Robinhood style. We're going to take from the bots and we're going to give to the humans. It's very simple. The fees that are going to be accumulated from the trading bots, maybe arbitrageurs, firms in general, anyone that's not a human, which will be priced normally like you would see in any other blockchain, are going to be reused to create a gas subsidy that'll be able to go to humans. So if you're an individual person trying to use a blockchain for your own personal life, you won't have to worry about the fees. Obviously, this is only possible because you know they're humans and you can introduce caps, rate limiting, and things like that. But this is a really cool feature. Like I said, it gives us the ability to make fees earned by bots on WorldChain go directly towards making fees free for humans. So that's just very cool. There's never been a blockchain that's ever attempted anything like this before. And not only that, because this is now happening outside of the World app, this is going to be a feature that's available for every transaction on any wallet. So on other wallets that will support WorldChain and World ID will be able to take advantage of this feature, meaning their users will have free transactions on WorldChain, not just through the World app. So that's a pretty epic feature, frankly. So those are the two things that we're putting directly into WorldChain immediately and slowly improving for the gas markets and so on. Prioritized block space for humans and a gas allowance for humans. And like I said, that's all a part of our first principle, putting humans over bots on WorldChain. So that's a lot of the product stuff. That's what we're doing to make this unique and what we can uniquely build because it's an L2 rollup and we run the sequencer as part of the World Network. But what are we doing to make this blockchain useful in the real world? I want to share something that people that know me have probably heard millions of times, which is how insane stablecoin growth has been. There's a report that came out just last month by Brevin Howard Digital and Castle Island Ventures. They went around and they surveyed people in 5 of the countries where stablecoin adoption is at its highest. And they asked them, like, what do you use stablecoins for? And although the largest answer I didn't put on the slide was 50% of people saying they use it for trading crypto and NFTs, as you might expect, a shockingly large number of them also use stablecoins to save in dollars, seek better currency conversion, earn a yield on their savings, or just send money internationally. And this is a very big deal. If you've been in crypto for a long time, you can be a bit, jaded because of all the memes, the smoke and mirrors, the nonsense. But this is serious adoption, and I want to convey to you how serious it is. If you look at spot crypto trading volume against stablecoin monthly sending addresses, you can see even as NFT booms have come and gone, ICOs, meme coin mania, whatever it is, even as the markets have gone up and down, stablecoin usage has gone up and to the right consistently for 5 straight years. This is a beautiful graph in crypto because we're not talking about bull markets and bear markets, we're talking about real world usage. And this is happening in all of the same markets where WorldCoin has been able to get deep integration. Latin America, in Africa, in Southeast Asia, in the eastern parts of Europe. This is a really interesting kind of correlation. And I want to narrow in on one place in particular. Argentina, if you look at some of the statistics of purchasing power against stablecoin activity, you can see that in Argentina, people there have lost 82% in their purchasing power relative to the US dollar since November of 2022. And in that same time period, stablecoin trading volumes have gone up 10,000%. In other words, and you can go there and you can meet people on the streets, they're using stablecoins as a better form of money than what their government and financial sector can offer to them today. And this is insane because if you saw the keynote that Alex gave earlier, you would have heard a really just honestly mind-blowing stat, which is that 1 in 3 adults in Buenos Aires are verified with World ID. That means exactly in the places where stablecoin adoption is at its highest, World ID and the World Network is getting a user-based penetration, and that is a remarkable feat. We're not talking about users that want crypto for gambling purposes or to make a quick buck. We're talking about users that need this for their everyday financial access needs, exactly in the same places where world adoption is at its highest. So honestly, that's why I'm here. I think that's just like mind-blowing, and it's a massive opportunity because if you look again how this is going forward for WorldCoin, these markets are popping up all over the world. And if we can replicate Buenos Aires and other major city centers where stablecoin adoption is at its highest, that is an enormous opportunity, not just for the project, but for the entire industry as a whole. We can begin to deliver applications to these users that benefit their lives and start to decouple from the narrative of bull and bear markets and meme coin mania. So how do we deal with this situation? We need to be able to build with WorldChain a blockchain that has 2 really important properties. One is for those people in these countries, we need to be ensure that they have financial access from their local currency, their local payment rails, financial institutions directly into WorldChain. And we need to ensure that for app developers, they can tap into the distribution that's been created by the World Network. So I want to talk a little bit about both why that is such a significant hurdle for us to overcome and also what we've done so far to get there. But first, I want to talk about just how big the scale is to give you a sense of this not just being a network that has no users on day one. This is actually already one of the largest blockchains on day one. And some of my favorite stats are these ones. One is there are more holders of USDC on day one after the migration from OP mainnet on WorldChain than on any other blockchain. That alone is just a crazy statistic. And this one's even crazier. There's more holders of $20 worth of the World token than there are $20 USDC holders on all other Ethereum networks combined. The key point being real people that hold and use stablecoins are on WorldChain already on day one. It's not the case that we have to go and get them. And there's already over $100 million worth of value in the wallets of these users. And historically, they've created over 150 million transactions, amounting to over $1.5 billion of volume. And it's, again, the most number of verified humans on any chain on the planet today as it's launching. So in order to account for this, we needed to not just launch it and then start getting some integrations. We had to get integrations immediately. And I want to give a massive shout out to the partnerships team at the WorldCoin Foundation and at Tools for Humanity, because we've been able to get some great partners. Immediately, we're going to be having support from Unlimit, Ramp Network, and many other on and off ramps around the world, including Binance, which will support depositing and withdrawing of assets as a bridge onto the WorldChain. And this means that in all of those places where we're seeing adoption by both stablecoin holders and existing adoption by world users, we have on and off ramp support directly for them immediately. This is a very big deal when you're launching a new chain. And secondly, in addition to connecting with the real world, WorldChain is also going to be directly connected with the crypto world. We have worked with amazing partners, including Synapse, Across, Optimism directly for the bridging capabilities, Circle, Chainlink, and Superbridge to be able to support immediately integrations that will connect not just WorldChain with the outside world, but also with the other blockchains like Ethereum, Base, OP mainnet, and more. So WorldChain is going to be very deeply connected on day one and support financial access for all these people around the world and for the people that are existing on crypto rails today. So that's how we're dealing with financial access. What are we going to be doing to ensure that developers can tap into this global distribution? I love this picture because it kind of reveals a bit of a dirty secret in the blockchain industry, which is that you don't know really if your application has users. You see, monthly active addresses, but you don't know, is one address one person or is 1,000 addresses one person? It's kind of an absurd situation, frankly, that we don't have any concept of user metrics in crypto. But that is going to change on WorldChain because of World ID. We have the ability to know that these are real people using our applications and not just arbitrary hexadecimal strings, which may or not be this guy. So that's really incredible, and it means that on WorldChain, we can try to incentivize and support developers that are building applications that can leverage real identity. Things like airdrops that go to real people, and I've been a part of some airdrops, and I can tell you the ROI is really abysmal, because frankly, there are industrial scale airdrop farmers that are out there. Additionally, you can chat with real people using Web3 chatting apps. Games that, again, are not just bots trying to find ways to arbitrage and make a profit, but they're actually games that are interesting and leverage Web3. Reputation systems, which will enable us for the first time supporting under-collateralized lending projects, and many more things, including voting, true one person, one vote democracy on chain. Really, these are ideas we've been talking about for years, but on WorldChain it's possible to build them directly and properly because we have native identity built in. And the second is, if you saw Thiago earlier on the keynote, he introduced mini apps. And this is really the killer feature, I think, of WorldChain for developers. Because, like Alex mentioned, World App is the third largest crypto app in the world, and the introduction of mini apps is creating a portal for developers to tap directly into World App. This means that if you're building an application on WorldChain, you have the opportunity to go direct to over 15 million people across the world, exactly where those people need crypto adoption the most. And this is better than just any other wallet, which has a browser feature that can maybe go to a web-based application that may or may not integrate well with Wallet Connect or what have you. This is direct integration into iOS, enabling you to have push notifications, marketing to get directly to the people you want targeted. You'll have descriptions, ranking, you'll have an entire app store ecosystem, basically. It's kind of leveling up the entire way that we distribute apps on blockchains to users by embedding it directly in the place where users end up being on World App. So that's how we're going to embody these two principles of humans over bots on WorldChain and real world adoption being our primary focus in terms of applications. Great, okay, so how do you build on WorldChain? Again, really huge shout out to not only the partnership team, the WorldCoin Foundation and TFH, but also just to like our friends in the industry that have really kind of been supportive of us in launching this project. On day one, WorldChain is going to have support from the best developer products in this entire industry. Etherscan, Alchemy is directly embedding its entire product suite with World ID, and if you go to the website, they've changed their cursor to be an orb. It's very fun. Optimism is, and I'll talk about that in a bit, directly supporting Tenderly, Dune Analytics, multi-signature wallets, both for individuals, groups of people, small businesses, and institutional wallets that need much more sophisticated custody, directly available on day one on WorldChain. And WorldChain is also interoperable with the Ethereum ecosystem because it is built on the Optimism superchain, which means it's going to be soon interoperable directly with Base, which is the fastest growing blockchain out there today. It's going to scale to 1 gigagas per second, which if you don't know what that means, it means basically thousands and thousands of transactions per second, reaching kind of a Visa scalability. It's going to be decentralized, so that it's not just the foundation supporting it, it's going to be a much broader network of companies across the ecosystem, decentralizing it and governing it. And of course, it's going to be secured by Ethereum, which is the most valuable decentralization blockchain network that exists, with Ether as the base level currency. So that is WorldChain. We have 6 major kind of features we're launching with: orientation towards financial and identity applications, to real world crypto. Millions of users immediately available for developers to tap into on day one, exactly where adoption is the highest. Prioritized block space for humans, the first time it's ever been tried on a blockchain. World-class developer tooling available from day one. A global network of on and off ramps everywhere where you'd need it, in places where stablecoin adoption is the highest. And you can go directly to humans via mini apps with a native iOS experience. Yeah, that's WorldChain. Thank you. And in order to talk a little bit about grants, how you can kind of get involved, I want to hand it over to W, the director at the World Foundation.
Thank you, Liam. Works. Okay, first things first, I want to thank Liam a lot. He's been driving this project from day one, since we knew we have to ship our own L2. There was like one person in the world that we're like, that's the best person in the world to drive this work on our side. And he's been doing that. So once again, thank you so much, Liam. This is amazing. Yeah. We're super happy to be working together. As we said in the main keynote earlier on stage, we are committing, 50 million WLD has been committed to WorldCoin Foundation grants program to build out WorldChain. We think that's just the first step, but we think it's a big step. There is a lot of stuff that we should be building out together. All the infrastructure for cryptography, all the WorldChain infrastructure, everything that you think should be in the mini apps that in the World app, and what basically pushes like the real world crypto adoption forward, we're here to fund it. Also a lot of like partners and ramp infrastructure, and all the things that we didn't think about. We have grants team that is on it 24/7. Get in touch with us if you want to build together. It's a huge opportunity for developers. We also have many ecosystem partners already, but we need so many more. We need to cover the whole world with WorldChain integrations so that you can use this everywhere in the world, in every country that we can operate in, and basically make this accessible on humanity scale. So if you go to world.org/chain partners, there are also materials for you if you want to integrate. I think that's all for today. We'll be here all day. Catch us. Let's talk about this. Let's answer your questions and let's build together. Thank you so much. Yeah. Let's.
GM, and welcome to a walkthrough of World ID services, how they work, how different infrastructure repos connect to each other, and just like overall walkthrough of every single component that you need in order to have a functioning World ID protocol. So everything from the WorldCoin perspective always starts with the user, right? So the user, when they first think of WorldCoin and they want to create a proof of personhood, where in order to have a World ID, they first need to go to an orb. They need to download the World app, as we can see over here. And once they have the World app, they go to an orb in person and they register, right? They just show a QR code, they stand there for a minute, they get the World ID, and once they have the World ID, they're able to create proofs of personhood. All right, so that's like a high-level conceptualization of how it works, but there's a lot of things you can see that are required in the technical point of view, from a technical standpoint, for everything to work. So once we have the user, right, the user will go to an orb, it will generate a valid iris code for that specific user, and once that iris code is deemed to be unique, by the way, this is the WorldCoin white paper documentation. So if you want to see how the proof of personhood part from the orb works more specifically, you can scroll down over here and you can see like all the math for like how do you determine that a person is unique. And this is the thing that I called to be an iris code, dimension to be an iris code. So if this iris code is unique, meaning that the distance between different iris codes, you can think of them as vectors. If the distance between them, Hamming distance between them, is sufficiently large enough, they're deemed to be unique, right? So for a match, this is the distribution for a match, this is the distribution for a non-match. So if you match, then a public key that was generated by the user, we call it an identity commitment. So on the app, you generate a private public key pair, and the public key for that specific user, if the iris code is unique, one of the left ones, one of the right ones. Okay, that's my bad. So this is matches and non-matches, meaning that if you match, the person is already registered. If it's a non-match, it means that they have not registered before, right? So if you have a unique iris code, that's my bad. If you have a unique iris code on the right, it means it's a non-match. Then the public key for the given user gets inserted into the set of verified users. But how is the set actually implemented for that specific user, for our user base? So if we go to the architectural overview, right, we see that once we go through this uniqueness check where we verify that the iris code is unique, right, we verify that the distribution is a non-match distribution, we go to the identity sequencer, or a World ID indexer and sequencer, which takes the public key from the verified user and inserts it into our on-chain smart contracts. So the way that this sequencer works is that it has essentially an API route that allows you to post a given identity commitment. And in the identity commitment, which is the public key of the user, it batches a group of identity commitments. And once it has a specific group, we are currently running on batches of 1,000 identity commitments, or 1 hour, whatever comes first. So we insert users every 1 hour, or if 1,000 users are in a batch. So once you generate this batch, you essentially update the Merkle tree root in a batch. So like, again, what is a Merkle tree? A Merkle tree is a data structure. I can just pull up an image, Merkle tree. So a Merkle tree, you can see is like this little data structure. These would be the identity commitments. And once you have the identity commitments, what you do is you essentially hash each individual pair to generate like a subpair, and you essentially hash these pairs of hashes until you get a root. And this would be the data structure of a Merkle tree. Useful proof that I own a public key, which is in the set of verified users. The way that you do that is you provide a thing called the Merkle path. You essentially provide all the siblings to that specific path in order to prove it, right? So for example, if you want to prove that you own L1, well, you'd provide a Merkle path for hash 01, hash 0, then hash 00, sorry, hash 00, hash 01, hash 0, and hash 1. With all those siblings, you'll be able to essentially prove inclusion of L1 because you'd be able to reconstruct the root of the Merkle tree. So that's a Merkle proof. And the cool thing about World ID, if we go back to our documentation, the cool part about World ID is that you can prove inclusion without revealing which leaf you are. And that's done using a protocol called Semaphore. So if we go and just search for Semaphore real quick, Semaphore ZKP, there's this protocol built by a privacy scaling explorations group from the Ethereum Foundation, which essentially allows you to prove that you own a private key to a public key, which is in a Merkle tree of users of any form. So this is what it's called, a semaphore identity. We call it a World ID, pretty much, in the sense that the public key that's in the set of registered users can only be inserted if a person is unique. So that's like the additional logic on top of a just vanilla semaphore group. So once we have that, we can go